This video is about multiplying rational expressions. So before we multiply rational expressions together, we want to make sure that we factor everything, because just like with regular fractions that are just made up with numbers, it's a lot easier for you to multiply after you simplify than it is to simplify after you've done your multiplication. So we want to make sure that we factor everything that we can factor first, and then we'll do our simplifying, and then at the end we'll multiply. And just like with regular fractions, we multiply straight across the numerators and straight across the denominators. Our first example, A, is 8p minus 8 over p times 7p squared over 9 minus 9p. We can factor an 8 out of this 8p minus 8. So that will become 8 times the quantity p minus 1. And then we can't do anything to our denominator, it just remains p. And then times, we can't factor anything out of 7p squared. But we can factor a 9 out of that denominator. So it would be 9 times the quantity 1 minus p. So we have a p in this denominator and a p squared in this denominator. And so as long as you have something on top of one fraction on the bottom of another fraction, it doesn't matter which fractions it is. If it's multiplication, you can cancel. And so we can cancel this p with the p here, and p squared divided by p, so that's what we're basically doing here. That will leave us with a p, so we want to write that down, what we have left. And we can't do any canceling with our numbers. There isn't anything that divides both 8 and 9, so those need to remain. And also 7. 7 is prime, so nothing divides it. And we have this p minus 1, and here we have 1 minus p. These are almost the same, but not quite. And so we'll cancel what we have canceled first, and then we'll take care of this 1 minus p and the p minus 1. So on the top, so far, we have 8 times 7 gives us 56, and then we have that p, and then we also have p minus 1. And then on the bottom, we have the 9, and then we also have this 1 minus p. But remember, when we factor a negative 1 out, what happens is it reverses the direction of our subtraction, because when we factor out negative 1, we'll end up, this positive 1 will become negative 1, and then the negative p will become positive p. And so this is really negative 1 times the quantity, and then we can write the p first, and it's positive p, so that's just going to be a p, and then negative 1 is minus 1. Okay, so we have negative 1, and then p minus 1. And now that we have p minus 1, top and bottom, we can cancel those. And we have this negative sign, and remember the different ways we can write negative fractions. So that right now the negative is in the bottom, but we can write it out front if we want. So we could write the negative sign out in front, and then 56p over 9. So this would be our final answer. In example B, we have x squared plus 5x plus 6 over x squared plus 11x plus 24 times x squared plus 8x over x squared minus 4x plus 3. First, we want to factor everything. We need to factor 6 so that the sum will give us this 5, and that means we're going to factor it as x plus 2 times x plus 3. Our denominator here is x squared plus 11x plus 24, so we need to factor this 24 so that the sum will give us 11. And we're going to factor that then as x plus 3 times x plus 8. 3 times 8 is 24, and 3 plus 8 is 11, which is what we need. X squared plus 8x, we can factor an x out there, so we'll have x times the quantity x plus 8. And the denominator here is x squared minus 4x plus 3, so we need to factor the 3 so that the factors sum up to negative 4. So that would be x minus 1 times x minus 3. Now we want to cancel anything that we can cancel. We don't have an x plus 2 down in our denominator anywhere, so that has to stay. And then we have x plus 3, and then we also have an x plus 3 in the denominator, so we can cancel those. We don't have another x, a plain old x down in our denominator, so that has to remain, but we do have an x plus 8 in the denominator that we can cancel. And then we don't have an x minus 1 up on top or an x minus 3 on top, so those need to remain in the denominator. So we have this x on the top and the x plus 2. And in the denominator, we have the x minus 1 times x minus 3. And you don't need to worry about multiplying this out. You can leave your answer just like this in the factored form. Example C, we have x cubed minus x squared plus x in the numerator, and x cubed plus 1 in the denominator, times negative 45x minus 45, and in the denominator 5x. We can factor an x out of the first numerator, this x cubed minus x squared plus x, and that would give us x times the quantity x squared minus x plus 1. The denominator is the sum of two cubes. Remember we had the formula for that. A cubed plus b cubed is a plus b. So we keep the sign the same for the first set, and then in the second set it's a squared, and then we change our sign, so it's going to be minus ab, and then always plus b squared at the end of both formulas. Our a is x and our b is 1, so we'll have x plus 1 times the quantity x squared, and then we change to minus, and then we multiply the x times 1, so that's 1x or just x, and then always plus, and it's b squared and 1 squared is 1. Factoring the next fraction, we can factor a negative 45 out of the numerator, and that would leave us with negative 45 times the quantity x plus 1. And the denominator there is 5x, and we don't need to factor that. We have the x squared minus x plus 1 in both numerator and denominator. And then we also have an x up top here and an x down below here. And we have x plus 1, both top and bottom, and we can cancel those. And what we're left with is this negative 45 divided by 5. Everything else canceled. Negative 45 divided by 5 then is negative 9. And so all of that reduced down to just negative 9. Example D, x squared minus 11x plus 10 over x squared minus 11x plus 28, and times x squared minus 9x plus 20 over x squared minus 16x plus 60. We factor everything first. We need to factor 10 so that the sum will give us negative 11. That will factor as x minus 1 times x minus 10. And the bottom, we need to factor 28 so that the sum will give us negative 11. That will be x minus 4 times x minus 7 times x squared minus 9x plus 20. We need to factor 20 so the sum will give us negative 9. And that will factor as x minus 4 times x minus 5. Fix that 5. And our second denominator, x squared minus 16x plus 60, we need to factor 60, so the sum will give us negative 16. So just list some factors of 60. It would be 1 in 60, or 2 in 30, or 3 in 10, or 4 and 15, or 5 and 12, 6 and 10, and 6 and 10 is the one that will do it for us. We need a negative 16. So it's going to be x minus 6 times x minus 10. Now we need to cancel whatever we can cancel. We have an x minus 10 on both top and bottom. We have an x minus 4 on both the top and the bottom. and then nothing else is on top and bottom. We only have the x minus 1 on top here. There isn't one on the bottom. There isn't an x minus 5 on the bottom, and then also there's no x minus 7 or x minus 6 on the top. On the top, we'll be left with x minus 1 times x minus 5, and on the bottom, we'll be left with x minus 7 times x minus 6. And that is the end of our lecture on multiplying rational expressions. Let me know if you have any questions or post them to the discussion board. Thank you.